And now let's go live to Washington, to Sky News' wonderful Washington correspondent, Annelise Nielsen. Annelise, it's great to see you. I appreciate it's very early in the morning for you. But before we get into this, let me just say on behalf of so many viewers of this network and of outsiders in particular, what a great job you did during the election. It was just terrific. I've heard that said by so many people, and I mean it. You did a genuinely terrific job, and well done. And thank you for being up at this hour.
Oh, wow, thank you.
No problem.
The early wake-up call, yeah.
There you go. That's got you. That's better than a coffee. Yeah. Now, Annelise, Steve Bannon was the architect of Trump's victory 4 years ago. I guess in Democrat eyes, they would view that as a major crime in and of itself. But jokes aside, he's now been pardoned by Donald Trump. What did he actually do wrong?
Well, look, these presidential pardons are always fairly controversial. It's a pretty bizarre system that the president can move in and say that he's going to pardon someone of a crime or transfer their sentence and give them clemency. And you have to remember the record for this is still being held by Bill Clinton unless Donald Trump comes through with a few more pardons tomorrow, as Julian Assange's supporters are certainly hoping he does. But this Steve Bannon one really does show that there is still some loyalty there after, as you mentioned, he was such a key part of his 2016 election win. It was pretty murky, the whole situation about the charges laid against him for the fundraising for border wall donations for the wall to Mexico, which was such a key 2016 policy as well. But I think, too, what it signals is that Donald Trump's shoring up his allies and he's not going anywhere. He's going to be leaving office. He's going to be regrouping, but he still has a very strong support base. And I think you can bet that he's got his eye on 2024.
Well, Annelise, yesterday on this show, Nigel Farage predicted that Donald Trump would be running in 2024. So I think you've got like-minded thinking there. Now, listen, you're in Washington in the heart of it all. 26,000 troops, as I was just saying, deployed in the capital. Biggest peacetime deployment ever, I think, and 5 times what is in Afghanistan and Iraq. So this is a major war zone stuff. But What's troubling me is kind of what are the credible or genuine threats of violence?
Well, I'd say January 6th is probably the best evidence that there's a threat of violence, Rowan. I don't think it's come out of nowhere. But right now, it is just probably the safest place you can be in America right now. I'd say if you're really worried about any potential violence, stay away from those state capitals. But it does seem like the heat has come out of those moments. The role of the president also in inciting the mob has been the really key focus on why that escalated so quickly. Because I've attended other Donald Trump marches after the election. There was the major one right after, and it was nothing on that. It was fairly peaceful, and really the only clashes were when Antifa and BLM came out, and there started to be the conflicts between those groups like the Proud Boys and other supporters around DC. But really, that's fringe elements. It wasn't kind of that huge heat of the centre of the riot that we saw there. But right now, I mean, we talk about the 25,000 National Guard. There's also Secret Service on top of that. There's the DC Capitol Police. There's about 200 different intelligence agencies across the country all working together. And there are trucks right now on the streets of DC that have the stickers on the windshield from Afghanistan and Iraq. This is the biggest military presence I've ever personally seen. It's an absolute ghost town. Everything's shut. I would be amazed if anyone got anywhere near to making any trouble. And even the vetting of the 25,000 National Guard, I've seen 12 people precluded for extremist links. That's actually pretty low in any kind of population like that, as we heard the head of the National Guard say today.
And Annelise, any details on what they were found guilty of? Why were they? What was the vetting? Why were they suddenly booted out? They're good enough for the army, but suddenly they're not good enough to protect incoming President Biden.
Yeah, well, it's really just what they've said is an abundance of caution and a certain level of paranoia. Of the 12, there were 2 that had seen links to extremist groups. And even then, I mean, how do you define a link to an extremist group? I mean, you could have a relative as a member of one. You could have maybe done a foray into it as a younger person and decided against it. But for the other 10, it was comments that had been made or also social media links. And so, I mean, that's very low threshold. None of the people seem to have been stood aside, but they're just being precluded from this particular event.
Well, we'll argue about this another time, but it sounds like Minority Report, thought crime stuff to me, Annelise. Listen, stay safe and keep up the great job you do there in the States for Sky News. Thanks, Annelise.
Thanks, Rowan.